What's good, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Good Defensive Sports Network's I-80 football show. As always, I'm your host, Jordan. I'm here with my co-host, Dante. This is a pre-recorded episode, so if there's any
Yes.
news that happens, we're not ignoring it. We just can't talk about it.
Yeah.
Dante, how you living? Even though I just asked you this an hour ago.
Probably the answer would have been the same regardless if we recorded this like we were supposed to. Chilling, doing all right. Been honestly, we just talking about it. Been in the gym and stuff, and it's nice, but I am hungry, man. I shouldn't be this hungry, but I am. So after this, I'm
Yeah.
definitely gonna be getting something to eat. It's probably gonna be bad for me, but
Hey,
I don't care.
what can you do?
Yeah, it happens, you know.
You gotta eat.
Yeah.
I think on this day and time, I'm doing well as well. I'm also probably an uncle for the second time. So,
Oh,
my
nice,
my
nice.
niece is beautiful.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
thanks.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, so
Welcome to the two little one that aren't your little ones club.
you have two.
Yes, my sister had another boy a couple months ago, like 3 months ago.
Not our sisters on the same timeline.
Just about.
Because aren't they about the same? Wasn't the first one around the same time too?
Yeah,
How old's your nephew?
three.
What's his birthday?
February.
No,
End of
literally the
February.
same month.
End of February.
So literally the same month
Mm-hmm.
for the first one, and then the second one, like a couple of months apart. Because my nephew is 3, and he was born the 1st of February.
My other nephew will be 3 months, so he was born in what is it? Or he is 3 months, so he was born in what's this month? 7, so April. He was born in April.
Yeah,
April or March, one of those.
Not our sisters on the same timeline. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And here we are, no kids. Well, you don't want kids though. All right,
Yeah,
so
I go back and forth, but I'm okay. I'm honestly okay with either. No. I'm okay either way. I've always been okay either way.
Okay, yeah. I got you. That's fair. That's fair. Well, we're not here to question if you want kids or not. We're here to talk about the Big Ten. We have 10 questions for the Big Ten. Also, for those of you who are wondering, if you can't tell, this is our first of our previews. As we start to kind of work into preview season, the next episode or the episode after that, we will be fully into not the next episode, 2 episodes. We'll be starting preview season. So, yeah, I guess we should get to it. I think we might be doing. Hold on, I think we might. No, never mind. Sorry, I'm looking at too many things. I'm doing too many things. All right, 10 questions. First question for the Big Ten: does Ohio State take a step back after winning a national championship? I think. Oh wait, we are doing the wrong episode, by the way. Good thing we just started.
What is this episode supposed to be?
It's supposed to be a playoff review of if the playoff was 16 years. If the playoff was 16 teams for the last 11 seasons.
Oh, who would have got in?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
I'm trying to match this podcast with Power 2. So you know what? Hey, it doesn't matter because the work is already done. So we're just switching. We're just switching live mid episode because we're doing the wrong episode. That was gonna make me mad if these dropped. Not that this is behind the show. As you all know, I have 2 podcasts, one with Dante, one with DJ. I typically do the show plans of sorts for both, and since I'm gonna be out, I was trying to make it so like it's basically like what you see on bigger programs where all the podcasts are talking about the same thing. So this episode is supposed to be a 10-year playoff review. And then the next episode, which we don't have to pre-record, but I had to pre-record with DJ because of my schedule, is the 10 questions. So, yeah, I lied. Do you have the link? You should have the link. Did I give it to you?
I can email.
Yeah, but I'll also send it
I
to you.
I think I'm playoff era conference.
Playoff era conference champs, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. let's be better. All right. Let's be better people. And let's do the right show. So this is actually, despite my best efforts, a show about Big Ten teams in the playoffs over the last 11 seasons. Last year, we already know what happened, but over the last 11 seasons, if the playoffs, well, actually, no, technically, we don't know what happened because the playoff was 12. If the playoff was always 16. So this was a fun exercise to do. It was also a lot of work to do, but I think it was pretty interesting. Like the data, I think that came out of it was really interesting, and I'm excited to sort of share it with you all and talk to Dante about it. And I don't know that he's looked at this, so this is going to be fresh for him. So we're going to get
This
his.
is definitely fresh for me.
Yeah, we're going to get his live reactions. So the reason why we're doing this, as all of you know, for it's twofold, right? One, I would like to stop talking about the 16 team playoff or the 14 team playoff or the 12 team playoff or insert playoff until they actually make a decision. But we don't know when they're going to make a decision. And so I just thought, like, if we're talking about 16, let's just knock it out. Let's just do one. Let's do a review of history and then not talk about it again until they make a decision. So that's why we're doing it, because we're most likely going to be 16 teams. And when you change, especially when you make big changes, you always want to look back and think about sort of what it would be like, what it would have looked like if that iteration always existed, and whose fortunes would have changed. And surprisingly, I mean, unsurprisingly, there are some changed fortunes if this is the case. So there are. Are you on tab 1 or 2?
Sheet 1.
Okay, stay on sheet 1.
Okay.
There are. Let's see. There are 12 out of current 18 teams who would have made the playoffs at least once. Do you want to guess who has never made it, or do you want to guess the 12 who has made it?
I'm gonna go with never made it.
Okay, so you have 6 teams who have never made
16.
in this hypothetical. Yeah, because there's 18 teams. There are 6 teams who hypothetically would have never made even a 16 team conference.
Okay.
Who are they?
I'm gonna go with Minnesota is one.
Unfortunately, you are correct.
Illinois.
Also correct.
Nebraska.
Definitely correct.
What's it there? What else is there? UCLA.
Wrong.
Oh, okay.
We'll do the, what is it? Not Jeopardy. We'll do the Steve Harvey thing. You get 3 strikes. So that's 1 strike. 1 strike, 3 more teams.
I have 3 more teams to do.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I can't think. What else is there?
So right now you were right about Minnesota.
Right.
You were right about, who else did you say?
I said Illinois and I said Nebraska.
Yeah, you're right about all of them.
Wisconsin?
Wisconsin would have made it, so that's 2 strikes.
Ah, damn. Okay.
I think you're overthinking this. You should definitely at least get 2 more.
Purdue?
Yes. That's okay. 4.
I want to say Northwestern, but I think that's wrong.
Is that a guess? Are you talking it through?
I'm talking it through. All right, Northwestern.
Wrong.
I know. I knew it.
They made it. They made it once. I'm
Yeah, they made it
surprised.
once.
It's
Yeah,
it's Maryland and Rutgers.
I couldn't think of them. I couldn't think of them.
You just the name slipped your mind.
Yeah, Maryland and Rutgers. Yeah, I would have got this right if I would have remembered those two schools. I definitely would have got it right because I was on a
So,
roll. Like,
yeah, you were. So there are there are six schools out of the current 18 team conference who would have never made the playoffs, even in a 16 team. Minnesota not making it surprised me because they had that year where they won 11 games, but
yeah,
I think they were or whatever it was. But like, hold on, let me see what season that was. Minnesota, was it 11 games that they won?
are you sure? I think they tailed in at the end.
Okay, let me
What
see. I'll
year was
just
it that UCLA would have made it?
Uh, that's a good question. You can actually look that up because it's on the first sheet while
Oh,
I
it's
look up.
2014. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Okay. I was looking for it. I was like, where is it? Where are they?
Okay. So Minnesota record by year because there was a year where they were really good because we talk about it all the time. Yeah. So 2019 they went 11-2. Okay. So now let me check this. Maybe we're gonna find out that I was wrong.
I don't think
College
they make it.
football playoff rankings.
I'm
What year
looking
did I
at
say? 2019.
2019. Yeah.
Okay. So I just want to make sure I didn't mess something up because that's surprising that they wouldn't have made it at 11-2. So now I need to figure out where they were ranked. So 2019 Minnesota, they were ranked 18 because they finished 10-2.
Yeah.
The 11 came from
The bowl.
the bowl game. So they were
Mhm.
ranked missed their best season, and they still would have missed it. So yeah, Minnesota never makes it. They were ranked 18
I
out of the
was.
16-team playoff field.
I completely
So
forgot about Maryland and
yeah,
goddamn.
and Rutgers because they've been awful. I'm surprised they didn't come first, and to your mind. But
The
I
reason
mean,
why
you were
the
close. You
reason
got
why I knew it was the reason why I knew it was Minnesota is because they've been especially like the past those past few years, it was like really high potential and just didn't get there. Like nine
yeah.
wins, 8 wins, so I knew they didn't make it.
It was just them breaking your heart that made you remember it.
Oh yeah, I knew they were one. And then
So
the other three I knew I was just like I was right. I just couldn't think of Maryland and Rutgers.
yeah, we're gonna do one. We're gonna do one more guessing thing in a second. But so there are 18 teams. Six didn't make it. There are. That means there's 12 that made it. Ohio State has made it. Michigan's made it. Oregon, Penn State, Michigan State, Iowa, USC, Washington, Wisconsin, Indiana, Northwestern, UCLA. We're only going to do one more guessing thing because we can't make it the whole show. So I'm just going to ask you a question. Do you want it to be hard or do you want it to be easy? It's not going to be impossible, but do you want it to be hard or do you want it to be easy?
I'll take on the challenge. I'll take on the
You take on the
challenge.
challenge. Okay.
Yeah.
There are four teams who would have made the playoffs three times. You have to remember some of these teams were in the Pac-12, but for the sake of a Big Ten podcast, we're talking about them. Who are the four teams that would have made it three times out of 11 years?
Just 3 times and that's it.
Yes.
Just 3 times and that's it.
So you got to think about schools who have had good years, but not consistently. But which one of those good years may have, allowed them
Would
to
have
sneak
or
in?
have definitely have.
So two of them have made it. Like two of them have made the 14 playoff. No.
Okay.
Sorry. One of them has made the 14 playoff. None of them made the 12-team playoff, if that helps. All of them would have made the 16-team playoff. But only one of them ever made the 14 playoff.
And they've only been here 3 times.
Yeah. So in this, if it was 16 seeds for 11 years, they would have made it 3 out of 11 years.
I'm going to go with Oregon.
Nope.
Damn.
Oregon would be more.
Oh,
So
I
think
see.
of
Yeah.
yeah.
Washington.
Yes. Washington's also the only one that ever made the 14 playoff.
Team playoff. Right. Wisconsin.
Yes.
Is it a Pac-12 team?
There's one each
I
because
already
you have
did
two
one
left.
each.
I
Oh, I
know.
got.
There was two. Yeah, there was two
Um,
Big Ten, two Pac-12. Since you asked, I'll answer. So it's one each.
USC.
Yes, they would have made it three times. Yep.
I want to go either Michigan State or Iowa. I'm gonna go with Iowa.
Correct. You want to know what's
It,
funny?
mm.
Michigan State made it four times. So
Four
like then
times,
like
damn.
Michigan State or Iowa, like you were right there. Like you were right there. You were right there. So yeah, they've
Damn.
Iowa, USC, Washington, and Wisconsin all made it three times. The other one that I was going to ask you is there's three teams that would have made it seven times, but I thought that one was going to be too easy. The three teams
Michigan, OSU, Penn State.
close. OSU's made it way more than seven.
Oh, it was just seven.
Yes.
Oh, Penn State, Michigan, Oregon.
Yes. See, I
Yeah,
thought that one was going to be too easy. So Ohio State has made it all 11 years.
yeah, that's what. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Michigan would have made it seven. Oregon would have made it seven. Penn State would have made it seven. Michigan State would have made it four times. Oh,
Okay,
and Michigan State also made the 14 playoff once.
they did. They
Iowa,
sure did.
yep. Iowa, USC, Washington, Wisconsin are all three. Indiana's two, including last year. So they would have made it one other time. Northwestern is twice.
Yeah.
And then UCLA is only once. I do think one of Northwestern's year, though, was the pandemic. So that sort of kind of
I'm looking
doesn't
right at
count.
it. Yes. Mm-hmm.
But so like technically one of actually so Indiana, Northwestern both would have made it in the pandemic year, so that sort of doesn't count. And then one of Iowa's three would have been the pandemic year, but there are two other years that Iowa would have made it
They made
on
it the
their
next
own
year after.
without the
They
pandemic.
would have made it the
Yeah.
next year.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the other year that they would have made it was 2025, and they would have been the fifth seed. They had a really good year in 2025. They were right outside of the 14 playoff. So, initial
You
thoughts.
have to be talking about 2015 and not 2025.
What did I say? Yeah, 2015. Sorry, 2015.
Yeah.
Wrong.
Wait a minute. Yeah.
So we had. So any initial thoughts on any of the teams that never made it? The number of times teams made it, surprises. Where are you at now that you've heard the data for the first time?
The real surprise is UCLA. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't expect UCLA had made it even with 16 teams. That's surprising.
Yeah.
The other schools, the four schools that never made it, make sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And again, I would have thrown Northwestern in there too, but then I remembered the pandemic year and I remember a different year, so I was like, they definitely made it in due to record.
Yep.
But yeah, I thought Penn State would have more than just seven.
I did too, actually.
Mm-hmm. I thought they would have more, but I do find it hilarious. When I saw UCLA, I was like, they would have made it in. That's crazy. But that one about there just being three, I was right with the Wisconsin Washington as soon as I said them. I knew that.
Yeah, for sure. So Penn State's interesting because Penn State had a couple of rough years, so they didn't make it in 14 and 15. Okay. Then they would have made it 16, 17, 18, 19.
Right.
If you remember, Penn State had a horrible pandemic year. But
yes.
we discount that. But then they had a bad year after the pandemic too, and that's when everyone wanted him to get fired. And that's when they wanted him to take the USC job, and he didn't get it. And then they would have made it the last 3 years. They would have made it 22, 23, and they did make it in 24.
24.
I think the other interesting thing about Penn State is there is only... So Penn State, every year that Penn State made the playoffs, they would have made a 12-team playoff. Yep. So it still would only be 7, but they would have made... There's never a year that they were 13, 14, 15, or 16. They were always above 12, but most of the times they were like between 9 and 12. So like Penn State has essentially never been a top 8 team except for twice. They did it once in 2016, and then of course they did it last year where they made it and they were the number 4 seed or whatever it was, but they were one of the best teams in the country. So Penn State, I definitely thought Penn State would have been like 8 or 9. But then when you think about it, 14, 15, they were coming off the sanctions and they were kind of starting over. The pandemic year was bad. And in 2021, I don't remember what the hell happened, but they shouldn't have been that bad. And then if you do the numbers, you get 7.
Yeah. That's
Oregon at 7 makes sense. Michigan
yeah,
at 7 makes sense.
yeah.
Um, Michigan State at 4. So like Michigan State, like that also made sense to me because like Michigan State was always the best of the rest for like many years. So
Yeah.
it makes sense that they have like
Remember,
at
we
least
kept saying that
one.
about Minnesota should be coming up and being Michigan State or Illinois.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. And so they were always the best of the rest. And so it makes sense that they have one more than Iowa and Wisconsin when you're
I
looking
thought
at Big
Iowa
Ten
honestly would
schools.
have. I thought Iowa would have because I know there's a few times they've had 10 wins and or been playing in that Big Ten conference game. So I thought they would have a little more than was it 3, 4,
Yeah, 3.
3? Yeah, I thought they might have 4 or 5, honestly. But yeah,
Yeah, so I think the thing with that, and this is hard to get into, so like we can't get stuck on it. I think some of that is Big Ten bias, where like a 9-3 Iowa was probably like 18 or 19, and then like a 9-3 Ole Miss was 15 or something like that. Where it's just kind of like we can actually probably look at it, right? So and I don't. Again, I'm not saying they were good in all these years, but just teams that they could have been like potentially replaced by. Um, like in 2019, Alabama, Michigan, Notre Dame were ahead of them. Those are teams with higher sort of cachet.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, 2022, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I actually I was interesting. I don't have the ability to do the data because I didn't list the top 25 teams in all of these years. It maybe would have been interesting to do that. I do wonder how many years they were close, like how many years they sort of just were
Just
outside
missed
the
it. Yeah.
range. But I didn't do that. I didn't do top 25. So yeah. So I get okay. So USC only being 3, I think is very interesting because it just shows how bad they've been for so long.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all. It doesn't surprise me one bit.
So
USC has just been above, like in my eyes, just been a but better than just been a bit better than Miami.
yes. So I know this is a Big Ten podcast, but just for the sake of talking, these are all of the schools nationally who have made it 3 times, who would have made it 3 times, and USC is in there. Auburn, Baylor, Florida, Iowa, LSU, TCU, Texas, USC, Utah, Washington, Wisconsin. And I said something similar on Power 2.
Florida only has 3.
You're right. But that's exactly the point that I was going to mention. You
They
think
have been
about
terrible
these,
for a while, though.
right? That's why I wanted to do it because you think about it and you're like, huh, Florida, Texas,
Yeah,
USC,
yeah.
these you think best jobs in America, blue blood, like all of these things, they've been bad. Like this is how long they've been bad. In an 11-year span, they wouldn't have made it in the top 16 more than 3 times. While up like teams that you can consider upstarts like Wisconsin, Washington, Utah, TCU also would have made it
Michigan
those
State
times. We talk about LSU a lot.
4 times.
I think we talked about this. Would you rather be Ohio State or would you rather be LSU? Where Ohio State you're always in, but LSU, when you have good years, you win a
4.
championship. LSU's won a championship in this time frame, but LSU would only have made a 16 team playoff 3 times, where Ohio State would have made it 11 times. So it's like, do you really want to be LSU, where for 8 out of 11 years you don't make the playoffs, even if it's expanded, but then 1 out of those 3 times you won a national championship? I'm still taking the 11. Like if LSU would have maybe been like 7, then I think you have the conversation. But like this is like looking at it like this, it's like no, LSU's not even competing. Like they're not in the years that they don't win national championships. They're not even
And I
top
do. They
16.
were terrible. They were pretty bad too. Hmm.
So
Interesting.
LSU would have made it in 18, 19. So those are both Joe Burrow years, and then they
Yeah.
would have made it in 2023, which was the Jaden Daniel year.
Yeah.
right?
And that's
Yeah,
it.
2023, which is the Jaden Daniel year. So
Yeah.
it's like when you have Heisman winning quarterbacks, they get in. One of those years they win a national championship.
Honestly, you're going to the first five years. They barely sniff it.
No, not at all. And then they were up and
Oh
down
no,
in 2023.
it's back to back years and then nothing and then 1 year. Like it's yeah.
And again, it's 2 Joe Burrow years. First number one pick, NFL quarterback, and then the one Jaden Daniel year, high pick, rookie of the year. And 2023, they were up and down. They didn't have a great year with Jaden Daniels, but I wouldn't have wanted to see them in a playoff. I wouldn't have wanted to give Jaden Daniels a 1 game sample to try to beat. But again, the range is just crazy. It's 11 years. You only make it 3 times. Where again, Ohio State, they make it all 11 times. So I thought that was interesting.
It's a bit interesting. Can't even lie.
Yeah.
I thought LSU might have been in there just a bit more, but yeah.
The other thing that I thought was, I think this really it's really interesting to sort of group these teams because when you think about it, it sort of like makes sense. So again, Big Ten show, but I just want to like mention it because it shows. I think it shows in what group these Big Ten teams are in, right? So there's only 2 teams that would have made it every year. That's Ohio State and Alabama. Georgia then would have made it.
I was thought. Yeah.
Georgia would have made it 9 times, and then the next group is Clemson and Oklahoma. The funny thing about this group, Alabama has like multiple championships. Ohio State has 1 in this 11-year span. No, they have 2. Sorry, Ohio State has 2 in this 11-year span. Georgia has 2. Clemson has 2. Oklahoma would have made it 8 times and has 0 championships.
Has none.
So it's like you think Oklahoma should be in this group, but again, Alabama has 4 or 5 in this 11-year period, and then Ohio State, Georgia, and Clemson all have 2, and then Oklahoma comes in. They still have 8 appearances, no rings.
Doesn't matter because they stink. Oklahoma, it's their defense. Never really had the defense.
Yep. And so Oklahoma would have made it in 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20, and 21.
Yeah,
so
that's right around 1, 2, right around
3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
21 is when he left, right?
Yeah, they would have made it 7 years in a row. Basically, yeah. No, yeah, you're right. So basically, they would have made it essentially every year under Lincoln Riley. I don't remember exactly when he took over. Like 15 and 16 may have been Bob Stoops, but they would have made it every year under Lincoln Riley and then just lost. They would have lost every year. So it's just like that's really interesting. And then they would have made it in 2023, which is the one good year that they had under Davos. God, I can't think of his name right now. So so you have Clemson, Oklahoma, and then the group of teams that would have made it 7 times. We've already talked about most of them because 3 of them are in the Big Ten now. The other one that would have made it 7 times is Notre Dame.
Huh. Yeah. Okay.
I think that makes sense, right?
Yeah,
Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, top of the sport. Oklahoma is an anomaly, and then you have Michigan, Notre Dame, Oregon, Penn State as that sort of second tier who's like had up and downs, has been hungry, like you think, but that's really the tier where, especially until Michigan won in 2023, that's really the tier where you're like, why haven't they won a national championship yet? Like, why aren't they closer? And so it's just interesting to me how the data really sort of plays out into what you really think about these teams in real life as well. And then, of course, like Michigan, you think of in a better favor a little bit because they did win that national championship. But you'd probably group Michigan, Notre Dame, Oregon, and Penn State. And in a lot of areas, you'd sort of group them together. And they end up sort of in this group as well. The last thing I want to do before we go back into the Big Ten, because we're focusing a lot outside of the Big Ten. Of this group that I mentioned that would have made it 7 or more times, every single one of these teams, so it's 9 teams, 7 of the 9 teams are currently in the Big Ten or the SEC. The only ones who are not is Clemson's in the ACC and Notre Dame is on its own. The current Big Ten teams make up four of the seven, and then current SEC teams make up three of the seven. So I also think that sort of, but it's sort of weird though because like Oklahoma's in this list, but they're in the SEC, but they're not good anymore. So you sort of replace Oklahoma with Texas. But yeah, so it sort of shows. I thought that was interesting as well. But in our sort of Big Ten thoughts, which program, not Ohio State edition, which program do you think would have benefited the most from making the playoffs the number of times they would have made it hypothetically?
Outside of Penn State?
I mean, there are two other teams that would have made it seven times. So, like, is Penn State your answer, or do you think someone else? But like,
Uh,
you can choose Penn State if you think that's the answer. Yeah.
the other answer is Oregon, who came close twice, right? Winning the championship.
I think they made the championship game, or they made the no. They didn't make the champ. I can never remember if Oregon played.
It'd be Oregon or
Yeah,
Penn State.
so Oregon made the championship game in 2014 and lost to Ohio State.
Okay. So I would either go Oregon or Penn State. Those would be the two answers for me.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, especially because again, Michigan did make the 14 playoff multiple times,
Yeah,
and they won a national championship.
They actually did win one. So,
but I'm actually gonna go a little different from that. I think those are the common answers. I'm actually gonna go with Michigan State.
I was thinking that too. That was going through my head as well.
Because I just think like Michigan State fell off so heavy, and some of it is due to like bad coaching and things like that. But Michigan State making the playoffs has also sort of been spread out. So they would have made it the first 2 years. They would have made it in 14 and 15. They did make it in 15. Then they would have made it in 17. What would Michigan State be if they made the playoffs three times in 4 years?
Yeah.
Like, do the last 5 years? I just don't think the last 5 years happen. I think they get better recruits, they get more money. Even if the coach does retire, maybe they get a better coach to come in, right? Like maybe you're pulling, again, this is the wrong era, but like maybe you're pulling a Lincoln Riley, maybe you're pulling a Dan Lanning, maybe you're pulling a Kirby Smart, something like that because you're good instead of having to go with Mel Tucker, who hadn't really won much, but Michigan
Okay.
State's
Yeah.
job wasn't that good.
I
So
would
I
also.
think
Yeah, I see where you're going with that. And I would change. I'm going to change my answer. Go ahead.
okay.
My bad. Yeah.
So yeah, I just think that's interesting. If they make it three times in 4 years, I think maybe they never win a national championship, but I think their fortune changes, and then they're probably one of the teams that has made it 7 or 8 times instead of only making it four because they had such a drastic fall off after 15 and 16. And you could argue that they maybe should have been better because they did have two good years in 14 and 15. And so you could argue that maybe they should have had that bump anyways. But yeah, I just think that Michigan State's probably my answer. Um,
My answer now change is going to be Wisconsin.
okay.
Yeah, I think Wisconsin does what you're saying Michigan State would have done if they gotten in a few more times. I think they get in a little more time. They keep who was there that was doing that at that time? Would have been
Oh,
I think
that's a
they
good
keep,
question. It's Brett Bielema.
yeah, I think he stays. I think he's able to stay because he has more of a national success because the team is making the playoffs and things like that. So yeah, I
So
think
then Brett
Wisconsin is
Bielema, and in this scenario, Brett Bielema never leaves to be the coach at Arkansas.
yeah.
I think that's a good one too. I think that's an interesting way to look at it. So Wisconsin
I also think
and
he might. I think Ryan Day doesn't get the Ohio State job, and it does become Brett.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So the only reason I disagree with that is because Ryan Day was already on staff,
Yeah.
and so like Urban Meyer, but if and people be lying, especially with revisionist history, but Urban Meyer basically said the moment Ryan Day got on staff, he knew he was going to be a head coach at Ohio State.
Okay.
So I definitely think, but again, maybe he, I don't know. I think that's an interesting thing, but I do think Ryan Day probably still gets the job just because it seemed like Urban Meyer was grooming him to get the job no matter what. But yeah, I think, and so to go to the first ones, right? Penn State and Oregon. I have a question for you though. So Penn State, right? We talk about Penn State as this team that's been close but hasn't gotten there. Do you think making the playoffs hypothetically 7 times and makes them feel better, or do you think they still get to where they're at now because we've made the playoffs 7 times but we've never won a national championship? Like, do you think that extra level of like success is something that makes them more content than you would say they were before last year, or do you think that hunger still shows because now they're used to making the playoffs but they still
I
haven't
think
won?
I think the hunger would show because they would still show. And I think because they would get better recruits with that making the they 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 always have competitive games, whether they make the playoffs or not. They've always competitive in the two teams that we want to see them with, and I think they end up getting better recruits and they win those games more often. And I think that gives them a more of a hunger to play in the playoffs and win a national championship. I think they make it more. I think they turn up and be in there not the 9 or 8 or 9 times we thought they made it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
So
think they do
then,
get the national championship in 9 tries.
well, that is the perfect segue to my next question. Is there any team in here that you think doesn't have a national championship but in a 16 team playoff would? So you said Penn State. Do you
Yeah,
think anyone else gets one? Does Oregon get
Washington.
one? Okay. I actually like that one. I actually like
Yeah,
that one. Yeah.
I think it'd be. I
Um,
think it could have been Washington, especially in those earlier years where they were fighting to make it in and weren't making it in. So yeah,
yeah. And actually, it's funny because Washington made the 14 playoff twice. So like Washington is one of those teams that sort of has those ups, which is why I'm really excited to see what Washington does, especially in this real 12 and then soon to be 16 team era. So I think Ohio State in this scenario wins at least one more. They have three instead of two because I still think Ohio State was the best team in the country in 2015, and they stumbled against Michigan State and they didn't get in. I think Penn State probably gets one, and I like Washington. Funny enough, I still
I
don't
don't know
think
if I can
Oregon
say
wins
Ohio
one.
State because Ohio State has had all 11 years,
So the thing is,
all 11 chances.
right now we have a 4 team playoff. The Ohio State hasn't made the 4 team every year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so like this is like a weird thing in Ohio State lore where like sometimes their best teams didn't make the playoffs, and it's because Urban Meyer, and he's admitted to this. Urban Meyer gets bored with success, and so like he overlooks bad teams. So like for example, in 2015, the reason why we lost to Michigan State is he legitimately just didn't care about that game, and he stopped giving the ball to Ezekiel Elliott. Ezekiel Elliott had like 8 carries in that game. Like it was so bad that Zeke after the game, like in the podium, called out the coaches. So I think that and some of those years that they didn't make it. So for example, 2015, um, 2017, uh, like one of those years, I think they have a chance. 2021, that was the Justin Fields team.
Yeah,
Um, that was his last year. That was a really good team. I also think if you give CJ Stroud, more chances, I think he gets one. So I'm only saying one. Basically, I think one of Justin Fields or CJ Stroud wins a ring. So
okay. I
that's
see what you mean.
4 years because they both had 2 years as starting quarterbacks. That's 4 years. That's 2019 to 2022. I think one of those years, and we did not always make the 14 playoff in those years, but also even if we did make the 14 playoff, it would have been different. Like we would have been playing different teams and different structures as the way other teams lose, whatever. I think Justin Fields or CJ Stroud wins in a 16 team playoff, and Ohio State gets three. I do think Penn State gets one. I do like. I like the. I don't know if I would have picked it, but I do like the Washington one. But I still don't think Oregon gets one, and I still don't think Michigan gets more than the one that they got.
Yeah, yeah. Michigan gets the one.
Yeah,
I and yeah, I think Washington, because Washington played at one point, they were playing really well. Boise would have been exciting in those earlier years.
yeah.
I know
And
that off topic of Big Ten, but yeah,
Boise would have made it twice,
yeah.
and so the years that they got in would be fun
Hmm.
for sure. Okay, so honestly, I don't have anything else on this. I just thought this was a fun thing to look at. Do you have any final thoughts on any of this that we've
No,
talked about so far?
I'm just very impressed on even like I've watched more college football now than I did back then, but the ability to come close to answering those questions right. If honestly, I would have got them right if I just remembered
Yeah,
Maryland and Rutgers. But my football knowledge just off the think off the top of the dome, I'm impressed. I'm impressed with myself.
yeah. I honestly think even if you would have remembered one, that would have helped you get the other one.
Yeah, it really would have. It really
Because
would have.
it's just like they just go together. Like Maryland and
Yeah,
Rutgers just go together. So, but yeah,
yeah,
the fact that you couldn't think about them was interesting. But yeah,
yeah.
no.
It
So
just it stumped me. I could not remember them.
yeah. So 16 team playoff. We've given our thoughts up and down on what we want and how we want it. Oh, so I actually have one last thing on how we're going to end the show, and it is future facing because I forgot that I saved this article. A lot of people have been talking about the Big Ten wanting to do the 4-4-2-2-1 thing. Tony Petitti has not talked a lot about it at all. And he finally did an interview to explain why he wants to do it. So I think that's a good way to end the show to just read a couple of his lines on why he is advocating for the 4-4-2-2-1. And so Tony Petitti says, the alternative to this system is expanding the field and giving the committee more to do. If you go to 16 and you have 11 at large, you've just added even more decision making. The answer is, well, at that point, it gets to be easy because you'll cover everybody. No, because the more spots you put into the system, the more difficult decisions you're making. Teams start to look more alike, as well as we all have a tough road loss. Some of them may have stumbled at home in a tough conference game. The sequencing of when you play, you might be at a really difficult place and then have to go back home and play somebody else or be on the road for 2 weeks. That journey is really relevant. So I think you make it harder. I think that's interesting, right? Because, like, for example, if you look at last year, how do you determine what 9 and 3? Like 16, they all would have got in, but let's say last year was 14. How do you pick? How do you pick between all the 9 and 3 teams? So I do think he sort of has a point
I know
there.
Alabama still doesn't make it. That's one. There you go.
So um, what else is this? If he said anything else interesting? So they do. He of course talks about the scheduling with the Big Ten and Big 12 playing 9 games, and the SEC and ACC only playing 8. And there's little crossover. So Petitti wants each conference to determine which teams qualify for the college football playoff. That's why he wants to set up 3 college football play-in games, and the Big Ten, both championship participants would qualify, as well as the winners of games between 3 and 6 and 4 and 5. He says it's just a way to also normalize your conference schedule because it's really hard sometimes to tell the difference among our own teams. A lot of times they don't play each other. Look at Ohio State last year. Ohio State lost 2 Big Ten conference games. Technically, they finished fourth in the conference at 7-2. By the end of the playoff run, they were clearly the best team in the country. So I think it's an indication of it's hard to figure this stuff out during the course of the season. If conferences choose their own college football qualifiers, Petitti said leagues will set up better non-conference matchups among the power conferences. The last thing he says is the goal is to play more non-conference games because if you qualify for the college football playoff off your conference record and then a play-in game, the fact that you play a tough SEC or ACC or Big 12 team and maybe get beat on the road or whatever the result is, that might impact your seating down the road, but it's not going to impact your access. There's 3 at larges, so yeah, it does a little bit, but at the end of the day, that loss isn't fatal. So basically, he's just saying there's two. One, he doesn't trust the committee, and he doesn't trust the committee to be able to pick 11 at larges, which I think is a fair critique. And then he's also saying,
I believe, that's real fair. That's real
yeah.
fair.
And then he also just says that the thing that other people have said, and that if the non-conference games don't matter. So in this scenario, if you play 9 conference games and those not, and really 10, right? Because you're going to play the play-in game. If you play 10 conference games, those games determine if you have access to the playoffs. So then the non-con games are sort of just fun money makers, which is sort of interesting. And honestly, if you think about it, the NFL sort of works that way too. Because the biggest way to get into the playoffs in the NFL is through your division and your division record. So, like, when you play outside your division, it doesn't always hurt you as much.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Like, we've talked about this up and down. So, and I don't think he said anything we didn't know. It's just interesting to hear him confirm it. Does him saying this and change your opinion on this at all?
No, not really. It's a good explanation. Like, it does explain things, and I again, the fact that he said he doesn't trust the committee to make a smart decision or make decisions on this subject. I totally agree. Totally agree.
Yeah.
It is interesting though. It is interesting because it just gives it. Since we're going to do this playoff thing, the NFL has been doing it. Let's do it in that type of way. That makes sense. It does make sense.
Yeah, I definitely see the vision of what he's talking about. So ultimately, it probably is going to be 5 plus 11. I always like the thought of the 4, if and only if you give me the play-in games, and I really only like that because I just wanted more games. But ultimately, I'm gonna watch it no matter what. So this is why we want to stop talking about it. So hopefully, unless there's really, really big news, which is doubtful, this is going to be the last time that we talk about the 16-team playoff. In particular, the next time you hear us talk about the playoff, it's going to be who's going to make the 2025 12-team playoff. And so with that, we'll catch you next week. Hope you all had a good July 4th. Good spend time with your family. Someone got on the grill. I'm gonna have to find a grill to get onto while I'm down there or something.
Pretty sure my father's gonna make me get on the grill.
Of course. No more kid privileges. He gets to sit.
I don't even live here.
And talk. Like, he gets to sit and talk about how you grill. He doesn't have to do it no more. But yeah, you can follow the show on YouTube, Get Defensive Sports Network. On Instagram, Get Defensive Sports Network. On TikTok, GD Sports Network. And we'll catch you next week. And next week we'll be live. No more pre-recorded episodes. We'll be live. And next week we will have 10 questions for the Big Ten. Yep. that is the right episode. So
hopefully you saved the questions.
I did.
All right, good.
We'll catch you next week.